Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here today. We're getting ready for round two with N2 content marketing. Very excited to have them back. I'll get into that in just a second. Before we begin, though, a few quick logistics for today. Everybody's in mute only, obviously, so you can hear all the great talking points and content from our speakers. But you can still ask questions. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. Just please make sure you type them into the Q&A box on your screen. Don't have to wait till the end. Type them in, and as you think about it, as it comes up, so you don't forget about it. So today we're going to hear about some great insights around social media compliance considerations for advisors. And I love the way these guys titled it up, right? Building trust at scale and staying out of the gray, because it's all where we want to try to stay out of. Our friends at N2 are experts in this topic. N2 Content Marketing was founded by both Nate and Nick. They're a full-service video marketing agency that works exclusively in the financial services area with advisors. They've really developed a phenomenal system. I like to call them our resident rock stars that we partner with. They have nearly, I'm in sales, so I round up, they have nearly 500 million people that view their information through their platform. A little bit about each one. Nate is the CFP. Also, in addition to his work with N2, founded RightCapital based in Denver. Focusing on Gen Z and millennial clients predominantly. Nick, no slouch either, quite a phenomenon here. Worked in the financial services space as a tax advisor and a financial advisor, focused on educating the world on personal finance, investing, and taxes. Again, phenomenal stats. I round up because I'm in sales. He's got about 2 million followers out there across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, that's exceptional. I think we'd all be very excited if we got a little piece of that in our space. So with that, I know you guys don't want to hear from me. We're going to turn it over to our experts here and let you guys take it away. So thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to hearing everything you guys have to say. Take it away, guys.
Yeah, we're super excited. Well, I will start off by saying I am no expert at compliance. That is why Nate's here. He's going to be driving the majority of this presentation because I use my platform to work with big financial institutions, other financial brands like Fidelity, Discover, Ally Bank, to help them acquire their next generation of customers. So my compliance considerations aren't quite as tight as you guys that own RIAs. But speaking of owning RIAs, Nate does own his own RIA, so I'll let him kick off the presentation here.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Ted. I'm super, super excited for today because at the end of the day, I had to learn all of this myself. What you guys are going to see today is me cobbling together and reading through what are the SEC marketing rules, what are the FINRA rules, to really understand, am I allowed to create short form video? Am I allowed to share this as an advisor? And how can I do that without going into the gray? As Nick said, he's the master of attention. And I'm the one who has managed to turn that attention into clients for my RIA. And we actually joined RightCapital back in December of 2023. When we did that, there weren't many advisors making short form content. Would you agree, Nick? There weren't a whole lot of people doing this. And in the last 6 months, we have seen a proliferation of advisors actually taking the time to do this. And it has had ridiculous results for their firm. And so if this is just one more tool in your toolkit, or if it's one more thing that really pushes you over the edge and gets you to create short form content, that's a win for me. So let's jump into it a little bit. My name is Nate Hoskin. I built my firm entirely with short form video. I have not spent a single dollar on paid advertising, but I still end up with about 7 to 10 inbound prospects per week. And I've landed 158 clients specifically from social media. I did this while also passing the Colorado DORA exam and the Department for Financial Protection in California. I passed their exam as well. So I have managed to do this from experience, but I want you guys to know that I am not a former regulator and I am no replacement for your compliance team. So what I'm hoping to do today is give you guys ammunition so that if you work with an outsourced compliance team or you work for a broker dealer, you get to ask them the right questions to say, hey, I want to create short form video. These are the things that I know are allowed. Help me make this possible. Help me make this work for the firm. Today, we're going to cover written policies and procedures. We're going to talk about entanglement and adoption because most of you are actually already doing the most risky thing to do as an advisor on social media. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about records retention. We'll talk about archiving. Then we'll dive into testimonials, because for the first time, advisors are actually able to do what every other firm has been able to do since time immemorial. We can actually use social proof to prove that we're good at what we do, but we have to do that in a very specific way, because as usual, we are in a highly, highly regulated industry. And then we'll close it out with disclosures, and I will actually show you guys where I plant my disclosures and make sure that I'm being honest with the audience that I serve, and I'm being very clear about what is educational and what is actually me selling and me giving advice. Let's talk about advertising at a very high level. So this is the SEC new marketing rule. Most of you guys have heard about this. This was an absolutely enormous change in our industry. They did a much better job than they have historically at defining what is marketing and what isn't necessarily marketing, because then we can determine as advisors what are the things that are required to be held to these stringent rules, and what things can be a little bit more lax. What things can we sort of flow on rather than feeling like we have to follow those rules. So I want to highlight a couple of things. As you are seeing in yellow, you're seeing things that include strategy, things that are providing hypothetical illustrations of performance, and things in the not advertising section that are talking about no hypothetical performance. So that's the number one thing I want you guys to take away from this page, is that if you talk about your strategy, if you talk about your investment holdings, if you talk about your performance, those are all things that are highly, highly regulated. And that is something that I have always been told, just don't. It's very rarely worthwhile to actually put your performance out there. In most cases, you will get clients who are performance chasing, and they are going to be disappointed if you have a down year, if you don't keep up with the S&P 500. So not only is it a risky thing to do for marketing, but it's also a risky thing to do for client acquisition and client retention. That said, education is very much not marketing. General education material, market commentary, these things walk that line as really not being advertising. And so you are able to share that education. The SEC and FINRA really want professional advisors to be teaching the masses about financial topics. You guys are the experts. They understand that if they keep you guys locked up, the people who are quasi-experts or maybe even scammers are going to get the voice. And so they are encouraging us as advisors to get out there and really share what we know. But they do very carefully count pre-recorded videos and testimonials and endorsements as advertising, as marketing. So that means that when we're creating short form video, when we are posting testimonials on our website or talking about them, those are considered advertising. We have to follow the rules when we're actually doing those. So rule number one, plan it, write it, and then actually execute it. So what I mean by that is that every single advisor has their compliance manual, and they also have their operating procedures. These are the written rules that your firm has to follow. These are the things that you share with the SEC or with the state when you are going and getting new registrations. So this means that if you are doing online advertising of any sort, if you are making pre-recorded videos, if you are running paid ads, these need to be in your written policies and procedures. So these are just what I pulled straight out of my written policies and procedures. These are the different rules that I have within my firm for keeping up with social media and making sure that I am auditing it and making sure that it's really, really compliant. So for the first one, the CCO is going to conduct reviews of social media usage. And so what I do is I go back through every month and I look at where everything was posted, and I just do a quick double check to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. It's archived. I know when it was posted, and I know which compliance representative actually approved that content. Then I make sure that all of my scripts are submitted for approval before they are posted or disseminated. This means that when I actually use my template, which is something that we'll share alongside everything we're going to give you after this webinar, I am actually saying, this is the compliance rep that approved it. this is when it was approved, so that if a regulator were to ever come knocking, I can show them a full record of that video and show them that I am very carefully keeping it compliant. And finally, I have that archiving, right? So not only do I have the approval, not only do I know the script is compliant, but I'm also able to show them the exact video and where it's posted. All of this is super straightforward. As you guys know, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. And so making sure that our systems are really airtight is going to be the first place to start, regardless of what we are doing as advisors. Let's talk about entanglement and adoption, because as I said at the beginning, many of you are already doing a couple of the riskiest things you can do on social media and in the public forum as financial advisors, because many of you are entangled in certain types of content, because entanglement happens when you are actually involved in the preparation of a communication, or if you have some control over that third party's distribution. And adoption happens when you explicitly or implicitly endorse that information or that post. So all of that sounds really esoteric, right? That's like, okay, this is just a lot of legalese. Like, this is just the SEC writing things that are confusing to make it a little bit harder on us. This is what I pulled from it. You are entangling yourself if you are involved in news features, speaking events, articles, or maybe even book quotes, because you are playing a role in the development of that content, right? You are contributing your opinion and your expertise, and then you might have control over how that is disseminated. So that means that if that content, even if it's not the little piece that you contributed to or participated in, is found to be non-compliant, you are now tangled up in that infraction. So that is actually a big firm risk. That is something we have to think about when we are asked on Harrow or quoted to provide a quote for an article. We have to make sure that what they are talking about is actually very compliant and something that we can put our names on safely. The same thing goes when we are interacting on social media, because I am willing to bet that all of you are on social media in some way, and most of you are on social media in a business capacity. This means that when you're on LinkedIn and you are liking on that post that your buddy posted, you might actually be adopting that content. And what I mean by adoption is that, again, if they are found to be non-compliant, but you put your weight and your expertise behind it by commenting on it or reposting it or something of that sort, again, you can be found to be non-compliant. So those things are very hard to control, and we already do these. That's actually the riskiest part of social media. When we can control from start to finish how the content is produced, how the content is approved, how it is posted, and how it is archived, we actually protect ourselves as advisors. And so that's one of the arguments that I'm going to make today, is that posting your own content is actually significantly safer, if done correctly, than just interacting on social media and interacting with the public forums that we already work with. I've mentioned archiving a number of times because whether you are adopting a post, whether you are participating or becoming entangled in that post, or you're posting it yourself, chances are you need to keep a record of it. You need to have some sort of record of what was that video, what was that post, when did I post it, and who approved it. So there are a couple of great services that are out there. XYPN provides a great archiving platform. That's currently what I'm using, but like most of the archiving platforms that you will find, they don't archive TikTok. And so I'm actually also using Sharp Archive, because that is a great compliant archiving system that includes TikTok. And so by using those two services, both are extremely cost effective. One is included in my XYPN membership. The other one is a total of like $38 a month when I only have TikTok on there. It's incredibly cost effective to just make sure that I have everything, and I don't have to go in and upload everything. They just pull it right off the social media platforms, and they keep track of it in a way that I can't manipulate it, which means that I can't go back in and massage posting times or what the video was, that kind of thing. That's the most important thing for archiving, is that it is behind a glass wall from the advisor. And then testimonials. This is my favorite part, because as I mentioned, This is all really new, but we are all very familiar with testimonials. And I'm sure that since the SEC new marketing rule came out, many of you have been sharing testimonials. And if you haven't been, you probably should. They help so, so much. They're just such a miracle for my practice. Being able to actually show that people are pleased with my service has really helped not only in client retention and giving my clients a voice, but also in getting new people to come and join my firm. So testimonials are incredibly important, but again, there is a whole nother slew of compliance things that we need to consider. So I want to read this in full because it's a little bit confusing, and this is straight from the SEC new marketing rule. The marketing rule prohibits the use of testimonials and endorsements in an advertisement. So, as a baseline, we still aren't technically allowed to do testimonials or endorsements. But what the new marketing rule has added is unless the advisor satisfies certain disclosure, oversight, and disqualification provisions. So, what does that mean? That means that as a baseline, we cannot do testimonials. We are guilty until proven innocent, and we have to do a couple of things to prove that we are actually acting responsibly and that we can post these testimonials. So, the way that they outline it in the marketing rule is solicitation and selection, oversight and agreements, disqualification, and a state rule adoption. Again, we're talking about very complicated legalese. We need some sort of lawyer to dig through and figure out what this means. And so I actually did that. I have worked with a number of former regulators. I've worked with a number of compliance guys to ask them, what does this mean? Because I didn't understand it as a human. The thing that I pulled from all of those meetings and all of that feedback from the experts is that you can use testimonials if you tell people how you got the testimonials. You oversee solicitors, so you oversee anyone who might be going out and using those testimonials, people who might be selling on behalf of your firm, and you or the solicitor are not certain bad actors, meaning if you have a felony, if you have a previous securities infraction, if you've got something going on, chances are you are a bad actor and you are going to be immediately disqualified from using testimonials if you haven't been entirely disqualified from owning an RIA or trading securities. I'm assuming that most of you guys sitting in here are not bad actors. You don't have that record. And if you have a complaint on your broker check file or something like that, that does not immediately make you a bad actor. We are talking about severe infractions that would disqualify you from this sort of thing. And then finally, if any of you guys are solopreneurs or you guys are state registered RIAs, it's really, really important to know that you also have to have your state adopt the new marketing rule. Because if you are registered with the SEC, you adhere to the SEC's rules. You are kind of that one level up. But if you are state registered, each state handles this differently. And so if your state has not adopted the new marketing rule, for example, last time I checked, Arizona has not adopted the new marketing rule, then you are not allowed to do marketing as testimonials unless you're out of that state, right? And so what I learned from the regulators is that it has to be your state of domicile. So for example, I am registered in Arizona because I have more than 5 clients in Arizona, but my state of domicile, my office, that is in Colorado. So it is Colorado's job to hold me compliant, and it is my job to adhere to Colorado's rules, not necessarily Arizona's, even though I'm registered there. So making sure that the place where you are working out of is actually allowing the new marketing rule and is allowing testimonials, that's the final component to make sure that these testimonials are actually going to be valid for you. So regardless of what you are doing, whether you are posting on LinkedIn, whether you are having a website, there always has to be a disclosure, right? So most of us know that disclosure, that is, this is for informational purposes only. This is not designed to sell securities. We all have that boilerplate disclosure probably somewhere on our website, right? And so I have taken that a step further and I have actually added several other disclosures. Those disclosures are going to include recognition and designations. They are also going to include a disclosure around testimonials. So again, I took the very, very legalese, confusing version. You're seeing some names on here that might make sense, but seem a little bit confusing. For example, what in the world is a bilateral non-endorsement? Or what is a compensation disclosure? And how am I supposed to disclose on testimonials? So this is pulled directly from the FINRA rules and from the SEC marketing rule to say these are the disclosures that you should have. Now I'm going to show you how they've actually worked in execution for me. And fair warning, this is a bit of a messy slide. I just wanted to give you guys as much information as I possibly could in terms of how do I actually do this. So on social media, you have the ability to have a links page. A links page is the landing page that people can arrive to from your social media. I highly, highly recommend having a links page. If any of you guys want to go back and watch our previous RightCapital webinar, we do a full hour on getting started with social media. One of those is going to be your links page and how you actually drive attention and turn it into conversions. But within that links page, which is what we are seeing up here in the top left, I have my disclosures above the fold. Above the fold means that if someone arrives on that page on mobile, or if they arrive on the desktop, they don't have to scroll to see my disclosures. They can see it right away. I have chosen to put it in a dropdown, which, as far as I've heard, is totally allowed. I haven't heard anything about needing it to be immediately readable. People can click and actually view the disclosures. This is my boilerplate disclosure. This is the one that says this is for educational purposes only, not trying to sell you securities, that kind of thing. Then I have another two. This one is a little bit hard to read. We will be sharing these slides with you so you guys can actually dig in and figure out what my testimonial disclosure is. But what I try to do there is I try to check off these three things. And these are big words that essentially mean, how did I solicit these testimonials? Which means, how did I ask for them from my clients? And that works hand in hand with selection, because there is the question of how did I reach out and ask someone for a testimonial? And then also, who did I select to give me a testimonial? Did I actually go out and ask every client to give me a testimonial? Or did I reach out to the people that I know really like me and just ask them for a testimonial? In general, the recommendation that I've always heard is that you should provide an equal opportunity to every client to give you a testimonial. You shouldn't go out and cherry pick. You shouldn't go out and say, oh, I know this person really likes me. This person has given me a lot of referrals. I'm going to have them give me a testimonial. Because chances are, most people who are willing to take the time to leave the testimonial are going to like you. I've found that there is a huge bias towards positive when it comes to asking for those. So the way that I solicited those testimonials is I went out and selected my entire client base and I sent them an email and said, hey, will you write me up a testimonial? Then the final piece is compensation. Did you pay for these testimonials in any way? Because you can't just get testimonials from your clients. You could get testimonials from anywhere, right? You could get testimonials from a random person on the street. You could pay them $100 and have them write you a testimonial. Well, probably not recommended, but if you did pay for them, you have to disclose that that is how you received them. And then the final thing to tie together the testimonial endorsement disclosure is to actually say this is not representative, or this may not be representative of your experience. That is the language that I've seen in every single template disclosure, is that, hey, people had a great time working with Nate, but this is not a guarantee or a promise that you're going to have a good time, right? So pretty straightforward. And then the final one is recognition and designations. These two, so the disclosures on my links page, and then the disclosure that I put in my captions on my videos where they are allowed. Some platforms, they only allow you to do like 100 characters in your video description. Others allow up to 2,000 or 10,000. So when I have that larger block that I can use, I will write in my full disclosure. I will put that in my description, because why not? It's the exact same description that I have on my links page. It is that boilerplate, the one that we all understand. The other one that I don't have shown here is your recognition. because many of you are CFPs. Many of you have been recognized maybe by the Investopedia 100. You've won a couple different awards, that sort of thing. So if you have, and you are posting those on your website, you need to make sure that you are disclosing that there is a bilateral non-endorsement, which means I am not endorsing that awarding agency, and they are not necessarily endorsing me. This is the most important with the CFP, at least in my experience, is that yes, the CFP is allowing you to use their marks and to use their branding, but they are not necessarily endorsing you. That is a very gray line that we need to make sure that we pay attention to. So again, this is another boilerplate template. This is something that your CCO or your compliance team should absolutely be able to pull together. I highly recommend having it anywhere you share your awards or your designations. So that was a lot on compliance. I just ripped through all of that. So before I talk a little bit more about short form video, I would love to know if you guys have any questions for me. Nick, maybe we can take 3 to 5 minutes if there are any sitting, but if we don't, then we're all good.
Yeah, Raquel had one on testimonials, which you kind of answered, but you probably add a little bit more color here. She said she doesn't think that testimonials are allowed in Colorado yet, at least for state regulated advisors. Do you have an answer on that one way or another?
Yeah, so when I actually did the DORA exam, I spoke with Patrick, who's one of the regulators for the Colorado Securities Administration, and I asked him that specific question. I asked, "Hey, have you guys adopted the new marketing rule?" Because I kind of jumped the gun on my testimonials. I already had them when I was undergoing my audit. And so I asked him that question. His answer was that, yes, they are permitted. We have adopted the new marketing rule. And so that, I believe, was a pretty new development when I did the audit. That was in June of 2023. And so based on my understanding, and I'm very curious to see if anyone has any other information, but my understanding in Colorado is that yes, testimonials are permitted. The other reason that that came up in my line of questioning with the regulators was because every once in a while, comments on social media, so comments on your LinkedIn post or comments on an Instagram post, something like that, they can sometimes be construed as testimonials. And so I really wanted to know, is this something that I'm allowed to have? Because I don't want to have to worry about vetting out my comments or keeping a record of testimonials that were given inadvertently, right? So the feedback that I got was that, yes, these are permitted. You're allowed to have your comments on. You don't need to keep a record of inadvertent testimonials. And you can also have them posted on your website.
Wonderful. Christina, great to see you. She has a question. What was the name of the TikTok archiver you use? And it was Sharp Archive, right?
Yes. Yeah. So Sharp Archive is the one that I use for TikTok. And then the other archiving platform I use is the XYPN archive, which is included in that subscription.
Awesome.
All right.
Anyone else have questions?
Pretty good? Yeah. Last couple minutes. We will have another Q&A at the end, but I want to make sure I give you guys a chance while the compliance component is really fresh in your minds. All righty. We will get to the rest of them at the end. So if you guys are furiously, oh, saw one pop up. Okay. I think we're good.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Now let's talk about short form video, because what I have given you guys today is the foundation to actually compliantly post short form video. But I've said that word a lot and I haven't really defined it. So short form video are videos that are posted on things like TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. They are videos that are usually in vertical format, and they're usually between a minute and 1:30 seconds, depending on which platform you are posting to. So we are talking about very bite-sized pieces of information, very small pieces of content, but pieces of content that have a huge, huge sway in our nation. This has become the #1 consumed type of content, not only across the United States, but globally. And this metric always blows my mind. The fact that 244 million viewers in the United States watch an average of 17 hours of short form video per week. So if you're ever wondering where your client is or where your prospect is when they're not answering your call, they are probably watching a short form video. And so we as advisors have this really important resource that most people just aren't tapping into. we know where our clients are. And I don't care if your client is 55 or your prospect is 55, and I don't care if they are 25. Everyone is watching short form video. And the anecdote that I always give about this is that I recently had to go to the DMV to get my car registered. And when I was sitting in the DMV, you're just sitting there waiting for your number to be called. So everyone's just trying to kill some time. Well, in most cases, people were killing that time by watching short form video. And so I was seeing grandmas scrolling Facebook Reels. I was seeing 50-year-olds scrolling Facebook and YouTube Shorts. And I was also seeing younger people who looked like they were in there to either take their license test or something like that, scrolling Instagram. And so everyone is watching short form video, and there is just a huge amount of attention being poured into these platforms. Not only is the attention there, that's what we talked about earlier, where Nick is incredibly, incredibly good at getting attention. That's why he has such an insane amount of followers and commands this audience that is bigger than most of us can even picture or hold in our brains. But then we have to sell them on something, because at the end of the day, we are advisors. Our goal is to build that book. And so what we are learning, and what we've really learned since 2020, when a lot of these platforms really proliferated, is that people are making buying decisions based on short form video. And most people prefer to watch a short form video to learn about a product or service, so to understand what they might be buying or paying for. And they also have a short form video convince them to buy that product or service. And so they're using it to educate themselves. And within that education, that is usually where the conversion lies. And that is what I have seen as an advisor over the last 3 years, is that the results actually show up. Because many of you guys are like, all right, Nate's just this young guy. He's making short form video. He's probably like, this probably doesn't fit for me. But I want to show you guys as much proof as possible that this is actually something that works for getting clients. So what we're looking at here is a little snapshot from July 1st to December 31st of last year. Over that period, I created 86 videos, which sounds like a lot of videos, right? But you have to remember that they're a minute long. They take about 3 to 4 minutes to actually film and record, and maybe another half hour at most to go through and script them out and edit them on either side of actually recording. And in doing so, I created 92 warm booked meetings. Of course, a couple of them got canceled, a couple of them got rescheduled. And so we're actually looking at, just from social media, we're looking at 74 organic meetings booked. So on average, that's about 3 a week. And I have had consistently a 90% close rate on those meetings. And the benefit there is that when they make it into that Zoom call, they already know me. They already feel very, very familiar with how I work, what my mindset is, what my body language is like. So by the time we have a conversation that involves me selling them, they have usually already made the decision to join me and to join RightCapital. The question is just details. And I will ask them in most cases, hey, have you checked out my website at all? Have you looked at my pricing? And they say no. They barely made it below the fold on my links page. They just knew they wanted to work with me. They wanted to learn more. And so they booked that meeting. And now it's my job to tell them how much it will cost. So I have talked a lot about the results that I have had. But something that Nick and I have really, really succeeded at over the last 6 months since we got together with RightCapital back in December is we've succeeded in getting very similar results for other advisors. And so one of our most recent advisors who went through our service at N2 Content Marketing, he was actually able to land his first client from social media, going from having zero presence, the profiles weren't even set up, and he did it in 50 days. So what that looked like is that Nick started our course on March 25th. The course is about 2.5 hours if you sit down and just watch all the videos. Of course, it takes a little bit longer if you're doing what we recommend, which is actually executing on the advice that we give you as you go. So he completed the course on March 26th, and he immediately booked a coaching call with us. So we got together on March 28th. In this coaching call, we gave him very specific feedback because thanks to the course, he had already set up his profiles and he'd already filmed a couple of videos. This meant that we were able to watch through and go through those profiles and say, this is what you personally really need to do to succeed. After that coaching call, he took that feedback and he filmed another couple of videos. So when we came back, we were able to do this iterative process over the course of 3 coaching calls to turn his videos into something truly viral. So once we finished up that 3rd coaching call, we also provided him with his content calendar and we wrote a couple of scripts for him. And Nick, you're going to have to check me on this because I haven't checked in recently, but I believe that each of the 5 scripts that we provided him got over 10,000 views each. Were there any that fell a little bit short?
I think there was one that didn't quite hit that hard, but yeah, most of them did very well.
Yep. Yeah. And so I do know that he was able to post 5 videos over the course of 2 weeks, all of which had 5-figure views. The result of that was that by May 14th, he had over 300,000 views. He had 1,000+ followers, and he had 4 prospect meetings in 1 week, one of which closed on the spot. The other 3 we're not quite sure of yet. Sounds like they haven't closed, but those are still opportunities. Those are still at bats. So I gave you the case study, but the question is, what do we actually do? Like I mentioned a course, I mentioned some coaching calls. What does this actually look like? This is the complete guide to short form video for financial advisors. We have built an operating system not designed for broad internet coaches, not designed for high ticket sales. This is just for financial advisors. And so we are able to specialize and say, Nick teaches you how to get the attention. Nate teaches you how to convert it and how to do so compliantly. And you can just absolutely sesh through that course in about 2.5, 3 hours. So because you guys are still sitting here and because you've made it to this slide, you're also going to get a bonus if you choose to join us and to actually join us on this course, which is that we have put together an AI video database. And what we have done is we have scraped all of the different platforms and we have gathered the most successful financial literacy content. We've provided the tags, the analytics, the statistics, as well as the actual transcriptions so that you guys can learn what are the most successful people in the space doing, and is there a script that I can maybe take and riff off of because I know that it worked for them. But it does not stop there, because one of the offers that we are doing really just today, because we only want to take 5 advisors to actually do this, is we are actually going to help you get your first client from social media within 3 months, or you don't pay us. So that is our promise to you. That is our offer today. You guys are able to go to n2contentmarketing.com/client guarantee. This is going to be the place where you can apply. We will decide, depending on what your firm looks like and what your setup really is, whether or not this seems like a fit. And we feel very confident that we can actually deliver for you. So that is our offer for today. We are going to be accepting those first 5 applicants. And Nick, anything to add on that before we jump into Q&A?
No, just again, the URL is n2contentmarketing.com/client-guarantee. I know at least on my screen, our presenter view is kind of covering the last part of that. But we'll also send you a link afterwards that you can use to register for it.
Yep, you'll definitely have it. Okay.